Hello and welcome to today's webinar on using manuscripts in your genealogical research. My name is Ginevra Morse, the Director of Education and Online Programs at the New England Historic Genealogical Society. I'll be moderating today's event. NEHGS is a nonprofit organization supported by our members and donors. We provide resources and expertise in nearly all aspects of family history. Today's webinar was made possible by our annual fund, and we are pleased to offer such programming for our members and friends around the world. Giving today's presentation is Timothy Salls, Manager of Manuscript Collections. Tim oversees the R. Stanton Avery Special Collections Manuscripts Department at NEHGS, that's a mouthful, which includes the Society's manuscript collections and archives. Tim will present for about 45 minutes. He'll give an overview of what types of manuscript items you'll find at NEHGS and other repositories, the information you'll be able to glean from these resources, and how to incorporate them into your family history research. He'll also show you how to search and access our collection. At any time during the presentation, feel free to type a question in the question panel to the right of your screen. We'll answer as many as we can in the time remaining. If you don't see that question box, you can expand your user panel by clicking on the icon of a white arrow with an orange background. You should see that on the right of your screen. And we don't have a handout for today's presentation, but in the upper right hand of your screen, you should also see a little camera icon, so you can take a screen capture of any of the slides that appear on your screen. Finally, as a reminder, we are recording this event and we'll post the video to our website in the next couple of days. All right, so without further ado, take it away, Tim.
Thank you, Ginevra. I'm very happy to be here with you today to talk about one of my favorite subjects, the manuscript collection at NEHGS. I hope to introduce all of you today to some of the manuscript items we collect and how these items may be used with your genealogical research. NEHGS has been collecting, preserving, and providing access to manuscripts since 1845. The Society's manuscript holdings now includes handwritten and typed family histories and genealogies, and charts, material with vital statistic data such as town, church, cemetery, and Bible records, genealogical papers compiled by genealogical researchers and authors, family association collections, and original documents and photographs donated individually and in collections of family papers. Original documents include account books, autograph albums, Bible records, commissions, diaries, deeds, family registers, letters, muster rolls, scrapbooks, sermons, receipts, wills, and more. The documents in the NEHGS manuscript collection represent New England and many other regions. The Society holds original records dating from the late 1300s to the present. For example, this image is of a document from the Clan Blair Society collection. This collection contains 98 documents relating to legal and personal affairs of the Blair family of Scotland, including charters, discharges, contracts, letters, marriage contracts, and other instruments dating from 1369 to 1698. The texts are in Latin, Scots, French, or English. Although we have too many genealogical collections to review them all right now, this slide lists a few genealogists whose papers are held by NEHGS. The FASG stands for a Fellow of the American Society of Genealogists. A manuscript is simply an unpublished, typed, or handwritten document. Unpublished manuscripts, especially original documents, often lack bibliographical features like title pages, table of contents, and chapters that help readers locate information quickly in published sources. Many manuscripts have no index. Handwritten documents can have additional challenges relating to the clarity of penmanship, different writing styles employed over the ages, phonetic spelling, faded ink, bleed-through where the ink on the back of a document is visible on the front, potentially obscuring text, abbreviations, corrections and annotations. Documents can be written in shorthand or code, and old documents are sometimes damaged or have missing sections. The fact that manuscripts are unpublished has important consequences and explains common repository practices relating to manuscripts that may be a bit intimidating to researchers at first. Original manuscript documents are often unique or one-of-a-kind. One-of-a-kind documents need to be protected and preserved so that it can be used by current and future researchers. As a result, many repositories require coats, bags, purses, and similar items to be stored in lockers outside the reading room. Patrons are often limited to a single document or box, and there are often restrictions concerning reproductions. Manuscripts are usually stored in closed stacks, meaning these items need to be paged. Although some repositories require interviews or registration prior to using manuscripts, this is not required at NEHGS because access to manuscripts is a benefit of membership. These common characteristics of manuscripts often result in these resources being more time-consuming to use than published sources. However, I note these characteristics not to dissuade you from using manuscripts, but to empower you. I hope that the examples I have chosen for this presentation demonstrate that the valuable data found in manuscript sources more than offsets any challenges. This slide has an image of an undated floor plan for the Dorchester Meeting House from the Dorchester Antiquarian and Historical Society collection. Beginner genealogical researchers, as well as those who are visiting our library for the first time, are commonly directed to start their research with the compiled genealogical data found in published genealogical books and magazines. The same strategy should be followed with unpublished handwritten and typed genealogies held by the Society's R. Stanton Avery Special Collections. Since they are similar to published books that most have used at a library or bookstore, researchers are usually very comfortable using manuscripts in which genealogists present the data they have collected in a typed book format. The two images on this slide are from a 12-volume genealogy on the Ross family, typed by Ernest Edwin Fuchs between 19... The three images on this slide are from a handwritten genealogy on the Bullfinch family that was recently acquired by NEHGS. Although it may take some time to become acquainted with a genealogist's particular handwriting style, researchers can usually read through a compiled family history like the Bullfinch genealogy and fairly quickly identify any pertinent data for their research. However, genealogists have collated their data in a variety of formats, and many don't present their data in an easy-to-use book format. This slide provides an example of data on the front and back of an index card from the Trello Hall collection on the Sweet family of Rhode Island. The index cards for the Sweet family are arranged by given name. Individuals with the same given name are sorted by birth year, oldest to most recent. This card file collection requires researchers looking up ancestors with multiple given names to search through hundreds of index cards stored in multiple card file boxes. However, what this researcher was able to collect on a specific individual is still gathered together or accessed quickly through cross-references to paper files and helps save time by citing specific original sources. This slide shows another common format for compiled genealogical data, the family group sheet. Both examples are from the John Coddington collection. John Coddington, often called the Dean of American Genealogists, was a co-founder of the American Society of Genealogists and author of more than 175 genealogical articles and a renowned lecturer. Fluent in French, German, Italian, and Spanish, and with a working knowledge of several other languages, Coddington conducted historical and genealogical research in local repositories throughout Europe and beyond. The John Connington collection contains 22 boxes of genealogical research and Connington family papers. This material is followed by general research notes, beginning with a folder for the Abantes family in box 23 and ending with a folder for the Zubout family in box 114. These general research notes are then followed by 16 boxes of European research and 17 boxes of correspondence to give you a sense of this collection's amazing scope. The image on the left is the back of a family group sheet for Ansel Connington. I chose this image because you can see all of the extracts from original primary sources written by Connington along the edges. The image on the right is a family group sheet for an Italian family that Connington researched. While many genealogists focus on a particular family and maybe a few allied lines, some researchers focus on a geographic area and study all the families who live there. The Roberto Dwyer papers, from which these images were taken, contains handwritten genealogies, extracted genealogical data from parish and cemetery records, data on occupations, and notes produced and collected between 1963 and 2011 by Roberto Dwyer, a genealogist and social historian who studied the families of the Beara Peninsula in Ireland. The genealogies include 155 composition books organized by townland with compiled handwritten genealogical sketches for the families that lived in the townland. The image on the left shows the cover for one of the composition books. The image on the right is a page within the composition book illustrating the genealogical data Mr. O'Dwyer compiled for the children of Patrick O'Sullivan and Catherine O'Dwyer. You can see in this example how one child moved to Lowell, Massachusetts, and another child moved to Butte, Montana. Consulting genealogical material that has been already compiled or assembled by a genealogist is often recommended as a first step, since it is usually easy and quick to search through the information to locate data that supports your own research. There are several reasons, however, why you might need to seek data yourself. A compiled genealogy, if one exists at all, might lack details for the particular family line or generation you're researching. Perhaps the currently available compiled genealogies for a particular family have errors that need correcting, or you simply seek to gather more details for your genealogical sketches. A significant source of birth, marriage, and death data for genealogists is Bible records. The NEHGS manuscript collection alone has more than 3,000 such records, and our society actively collects these records to this day since they are a very important genealogical data source. Family records contain birth, marriage, and death data, but the data was recorded on a painted register like a fractor, printed broadside, or a family register lithograph. Family records are also sometimes found recorded within account books or commonplace books. Decorative Family Registers is one of the online exhibits currently available on the Library and Special Collections section of AmericanAncestors.org. This family record was written within a handmade booklet. If you look at the bottom of the right image, you'll see the string that holds these sheets of paper together. This particular booklet was bound with a piece of a newspaper from 1796. I've also seen similar booklets with a piece of wallpaper or butcher paper for a cover. This record has two sections. The first has data for the Colonel Joseph and Sarah Glidden Smith family, and the second section for the Colonel Jeremiah and Mary Hershey Folsom family of Newmarket, New Hampshire. The register continues for the John and Elizabeth Smith Folsom family. Cemetery records have long been recognized as an important source of genealogical data. In fact, the NEHGS Council created the Committee of Epitaphs in March 1899 for the preservation of inscriptions in the ancient burial places of New England. The committee encouraged and supported the efforts of NEHGS members to create and donate transcriptions of these genealogically valuable records. As a result, the NEHGS manuscript holdings contain a significant number of cemetery transcriptions for New England, New York, and beyond. The image on the left is a page from Record of Burials in Hope Cemetery, New York, from 1820 to 1888 by David Williams Patterson. This is a particularly interesting sample because Mr. Patterson includes a transcription of the inscriptions and epitaphs, but also adds supplemental genealogical information and even corrects mistakes in printed genealogies. The two images on the right are taken from Epitaphs and Inscriptions, Old Burying Ground, Watertown, Massachusetts, produced by Frank Bigelow in 1866, with numerous pen and ink sketches of the tombstones. These examples show a tombstone with a child's birth date, as well as their death date, and another stone that documents a maiden name. There are other records within the same source that include coat of arm, occupation, military service, and even lineage to the immigrant ancestor. Since some of the sacraments administered by churches relate to life events like marriage and funerals, the data recorded by churches to document their administration of such sacraments is very valuable to genealogists. Churches that perform infant baptisms also often record the child's birth date as well. The NEHGS Special Collection holds the records, though often incomplete, for some 25 churches, primarily Congregational denomination, but also Baptist and a few Presbyterian. This slide has two images from the records for the First Baptist Church of Hollis, Maine. The image to the left is the cover sheet, and the image to the right is a church member list. As an example, I've highlighted the date that Gibbon Ebcom was baptized and when he became a member of this church, and an entry on the same sheet noting his death. The date and location of his death was a clue that this man may have served during the War of 1812, and this was confirmed by further research. Ministers often kept their own personal record of the baptism, marriages, and funeral services they performed separate from the church register. This slide shows the cover of the ledger used by Reverend George A. Crawford to record some 223 marriages for which he was celebrant. These marriages took place in Maine, Cuba, Massachusetts, and Japan. In addition to original letters exchanged between family members, the NEHGS manuscript collection includes a significant amount of genealogical correspondence that often includes data on births, marriages, and deaths concerning the correspondent and their ancestors. This slide shows one example, a letter written by Willard Cushman of Louisiana to genealogist Henry Wiles Cushman that includes information about the death of his brother. Town records are an important source for genealogists, not only for vital statistics, but also town officer lists, tax records, livestock earmarks, and other records. The image on the right is a typewritten transcription of the town records for Stamford, Dutchess County, New York. This particular page is a transcription from the town records concerning the manumission of slaves recorded originally from 1805 to 1814. The image on the right is from a handwritten transcription of the town records for Lancaster, Massachusetts. made by Town Clerk J.L.S. Thompson for NEHGS in 1884. The image shows a handwritten copy of a leaf from an ancient record book found by Josiah Flagg among the papers of Hezekiah Gates, deceased, concerning town marriages from 1647 to 1760. In addition to records kept by town clerks, there are also private records kept by citizens that document town events. The example on this slide contains entries recorded by David Livermore of Watertown, Massachusetts from 1794 to 1837. Most of the entries concern local deaths, but there are also entries for marriages, fires, individuals moving from town, and the record was continued from 1827 to 1837 by an unidentified author. When identifying potential manuscript sources for your research, consider what records were created by government agencies, private citizens, and companies that document an ancestor's birth, marriage, or death. For example, this slide has an image from a collection of funeral home records kept by the Wyeth Funeral Service of Cambridge, Massachusetts, from 1904 to 1964. The entries include death date, cause of death, birth date, occupation, and information on the deceased's parents. The particular image on the right, the page is for Ethel Gertrude Hitchens, a nurse who died of influenza in 1918. Some genealogists are primarily concerned with lineage research and primarily seek names and dates found in vital record sources. Other researchers begin by crafting the outline of a genealogical sketch with birth, death, and marriage dates, then seek additional details that document their ancestor's life. The later research requires genealogists to use a wide variety of manuscripts. The latter. As a record of a person's experiences and/or feelings, usually recorded soon after the event, diaries and journals are well known for providing great detail about the diarist's life and times. This image is from the Diary of Dotha Post. You can see highlights on the right-hand side taken from her diary that provide details of her daily life. If you do not have an ancestor who kept a diary, you can search to locate diaries kept by individuals in the same town that your ancestor lived. Whether your ancestor is specifically mentioned or not, reading diaries written by an individual who lived in the same community as one of your ancestors can provide some insight into events, weather, and other natural man-made disasters that affected the entire community. Memoirs are a collection of memories about events that took place during the author's life. The NEHGS Manuscript Collection has a small group of memoirs. The images on this slide are from a memoir written by Joseph Clark Bridgman in 1900 when he was 69 years old. The memoir provides accounts of Bridgman's personal life, especially his childhood in western Massachusetts and his marriage. There are accounts of his business enterprises and his experiences as a U.S. Indian agent in Wisconsin. This is in fact the same letter shown earlier. While you may discover specific birth, marriage, and death information in correspondence, letters are also a great source to find biographical and other information that help produce a more detailed account of an ancestor's life. This is particularly true in cases where the correspondence continued over time. Since this genealogical letter, written back in the 1860s, was saved and preserved, the information it contains, though contemporary when it was written, is now valuable historical data to us 155 years later. Business records are an underutilized resource by genealogists. Is there an old account book kept by a local merchant that includes purchases by one of your ancestors? What did they purchase and how did they pay, or what did they barter? The example on the right is an image from the business accounts kept by Samuel Townsend of Oyster Bay, New York, from 1739 to 1775. This particular account happens to include a note about a customer's parent, and the next entry includes the customer's occupation. The receipt on the bottom left is from a maid to the Fairweather family. It could be challenging to find information about an individual in this social economic class, but you may find useful data from manuscript sources like this. I have often thought that an ancestor's letterhead would make an excellent graphic for a genealogy, so I placed the top left image as an example. Fascinating details about your ancestors' lives can be discovered in court records. I have seen depositions that include birth information, occupation, maiden names, and family relationships. The image on the right is from the account book of, the image on the left is from the account book of Samuel Sewell with entries from 1670 to 1728. This page, preceded and followed by pages with business transactions, happens to be a list of fines collected by Judge Sewell for civil transgressions like drunkenness and swearing. The image of the account book on the right was kept by 3 justices of the peace from Middlesex County, Massachusetts, John Greenwood, Thomas Greenwood, and John Stone. In addition to entries for court cases, this account book includes marriages performed by the justices. This page shows entries for oath of office, mostly delivered to leaders of the local militia, but also a few elected town officials. Our ancestors, especially those who lived during the mid to late 1800s, were often very active in an assortment of organizations. This slide shows the cover on the left and a page from within the ledger for the Old School Boys Association of Boston. This is an example for an educational group. These records include attendance lists to dinners, a copy of the menu, and brief memoirs for deceased members. There were also military, occupational, political, and many social clubs and organizations, including sewing, singing, anti-slavery, temperance societies, book clubs, and fraternal organizations. Data culled from such records will help create more detailed genealogical sketches and help bring these individuals to life, so to speak. The NEHGS manuscript holdings includes collections with soldier correspondence, military account books, orderly books, military commission certificates, and muster rolls. The image on the left is a watercolor painting in a ship's journal for the USS Warren from 1839. The journal is part of the George Henry Probate Papers. Rear Admiral Preble was elected a member of NEHGS in 1866, became a life member in 1869, and remained a member to his death in 1885, and donated his papers to our society. The image on the right is from the account book of William Bond, a colonel in Gardner's Regiment, 25th Continental Regiment. Entries concern the receipt of supplies, lists of men who have arms in custody, including whether they have a bayonet, gun mark, and their gun number. Monthly abstracts for the number of men in each company by rank, and some records concerning officers' pay. Locations include Prospect Hill, Albany, Crown Point, and Ticonderoga. Many genealogists use probate papers at a courthouse or at a repository on microfilm. Family papers often include probate records. This inventory for John Hancock estate was a contemporary copy produced for Dr. Richard Perkins, whose wife Mary Hancock was sister to Governor Hancock. Richard and Mary's children were among the heirs to the estate. Such records provide great insight into an ancestor's material culture. The NEHGS manuscript holdings are a bit limited on school records. This example from the Dorchester Antiquarian and Historical Society collection is one example of the kind of information you can find in manuscript collections. This is a student list for a school in Dorchester, now part of Boston, Massachusetts. The list includes the child's name, age, and attendance count. Family papers often include school reward for merit certificates and samples of schoolwork. Scrapbooks contain items gathered to support and recall memories of events, experiences, activities. The memorabilia may include ephemera, newspaper clippings, documents, photographs, artwork, and objects. The items within the scrapbook were kept because they were meaningful to the creator and thus offer insight into their interests and character. Now that I've shown you a brief overview of the kinds of manuscripts held by NEHGS, I will review how you search our holdings to locate manuscript resources that will assist your research. This is an image of the Society's homepage. The library catalog that describes the resources in the Society's library manuscript collection is available under Search. Or you can access our library catalog directly using the URL library.nehgs.org. The default is for a general keyword search. I often use the advanced keyword search so I can limit the results to items in the manuscript collection. You might want to begin with a surname or town name rather than a specific individual's name. Please note that members and non-members can freely search our library catalog. I did a search for the Judd family, and for this example I did not limit the search results to a particular collection. You can see the icons on the left side, a book for a published source, a scroll for a manuscript, and e-resource for a digital item. Another icon not represented here is a picture frame for a fine art object. You need to click on a title to see the full catalog record. First, I will look at the record for this Bible record. This is the full catalog record for this Bible record. Members of NEHGS can click on the thumbnail image and a Java viewer will launch, allowing you to see JPEG images of this manuscript. I will now return to the search results page and now click on the title for the last item to show an example of a catalog record for a multi-box collection. This is a catalog record for a collection with 4 boxes worth of material. The record includes the first and last dated document in the collection, the collection size, a summary or scope note that provides an overview of the collection's content, biographical note, citation information, and subject headings. This catalog record indicates that there's a finding aid or guide for this collection. Although not as restrictive as they once were, catalog records have limits for the length and total character count. Finding aids allow us to describe the contents of each folder. Special Collections staff is currently working on converting these paper guides to electronic format that will provide you with greater search capabilities into the content of collections held by NEHGS. In addition to the library catalog, NEHGS staff employs a variety of means to describe and inform our members and the public about the NEHGS manuscript collection, including printed catalogs, guides, articles in American Ancestors magazines, posts on the Vita Brevis blog, e-newsletter, exhibits, and lectures. Many repositories, including NEHGS, create catalog records describing their holdings for OCLC's WorldCat database. This is a free resource that you can use to locate books and manuscripts. This database used to require a subscription, but is now administered by OCLC and is free to search for manuscripts. I hope you enjoyed this presentation that describes some of the prominent kinds of manuscript resources collected by NEHGS, the kind of data they contain, and how this data supports your genealogical research. Audience members who wish to learn more about the NEHGS manuscript collection, how to donate material, and other policies and procedures may visit the Special Collections page on AmericanAncestors.org. Thank you, and good luck with your genealogical research.
All right, thank you, Tim, for your presentation and for sharing with us just a fraction of what we hold in our manuscript collection. So now let's tackle everyone's questions. If you have anything you'd like to ask, go ahead and type it in that question panel, and we'll try to answer as many as we can in the time provided. So Tim, it looks like there are quite a few questions about how to access these resources from home. Can you talk about maybe what's already available in a digital format, or if there are any kind of digitized projects underway currently?
Okay. There are digital images for select items in the NEHGS Digital Library and Archive, like the Bible record that I showed during my presentation. The manuscript items currently available through the digital archives are smaller items, however, with around 20 pages or so. We are currently implementing a new system that will support entire digitized collections, and there will be a webinar later this year describing this initiative.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Bonnie asks just for some clarification on compiled genealogies. So would a compiled genealogy be considered a secondary source, or is it considered a primary source?
Yes, a compiled genealogy would be considered a secondary source.
Okay, and let's see. Beth asks, how well are our manuscripts indexed, and how do we find relevant manuscripts? You've kind of talked a little bit about that using the online library catalog, but can you maybe talk about if some of the manuscripts are indeed indexed?
Some of the compiled genealogies, like the Ross genealogy that I showed during the presentation, does have an index. Very few collections have an index, and really the reason is because of the size. We had one volunteer who created an index for a 2-box collection, and I think the index was something like 1,500 pages. So there are in fact few indexes. As more and more finding aids go online, and as we start to digitize collections, I think that will really assist members and public in determining manuscript resources in our holdings.
And so if a member or someone finds a manuscript item in the library catalog, but they can't make it to Boston, do we offer any kind of service to, do research or lookups or photocopies? Do we have anything like that?
Sure. First, I'll note that the special collection staff is happy to answer general questions about the Society's manuscript collections. If you have questions about the contents of a collection or whether we have a collection by a particular individual. NEHGS members who are not able to visit our library in person can hire research services to produce photocopies or to research through a collection for you.
Okay, thank you. And I do have that the email address for our research services up on the screen. It's research@nehgs.org. So if you have any questions about hiring us for that photocopying service, just go ahead and write to them there. Now Karen asks, what are the most recent years for items in your archives? Do we have anything after 1900?
Well, we receive genealogies produced, up to present time for compiled material. Family history collections often include, correspondence only a couple years old, and even in photographs, although our general cutoff is around World War II, but we do have collections with material up to current times.
Thank you. And we have a few questions about donating material. So what types of material do we want? And how would someone go about donating those materials to us?
Okay. We're certainly interested in compiled genealogical information and material with birth, marriage, and death data in it. We also have, a good collection of local history material like diaries and some of the military records and such that I showed. Individuals who are considering donating, they either deliver or ship the collection to us, and we help them through the legal transfer process.
And some other people have also asked about donating materials digitally. Is that an option, and if so, who retains the rights?
One of the current initiatives we're working on are some policies for digital preservation practices. So those are currently in progress, and if they contact the special collections staff, would be happy to discuss that type of donation. We have had conversations with some genealogists about websites and that sort of thing, so that definitely is the future.
Okay, and Edith asks, what is the difference between a finding aid and an index?
An index will put you to a specific page, and you have an index, for a person or a subject. A finding aid, pretty much, our finding aids list all of the folders in the collection, and it will say, something like correspondence between Mr. Smith and some other correspondent, and then we'll just say that it has maybe 20 letters in the folder. So it just gives you a sense of what's in the folder, but it doesn't really index all the names within that folder.
Okay, and Michael asks, it looks like he's transcribing a 166-page diary, and he asks some advice, and basically if he should go ahead and index it. Would you advise that he index that transcribed diary?
Yeah, I think if you're going through the process of transcribing the diary, now with word processors, you can put in index tags and it will generate the index at the end, and that is I think all of us can speak to frustration of using a published source without an index, so I would certainly recommend creating the index.
And we have a few questions about kind of preparing for your trip to the library and using the manuscript collection. Do you have to make an appointment to view any manuscripts, or might you be able to request that certain manuscripts be pulled ahead of time? What do you advise for someone coming to our library and wanting to use the collection?
Sure. We do have some collections that are stored off-site, so it will note very prominently in the catalog record if it's stored off-site. Those collections we need about a business week to retrieve. If you are planning a visit to the Society, we appreciate an email, and we can make sure the collections are here, and we'll even have them waiting for you in the reading room when you arrive. And you don't need to make an appointment per se. Members can use manuscripts anytime during normal library hours.
Okay. I think you've kind of covered this, but Judy specifically asks, have many or any of our manuscript records been filmed by the LDS Church?
Very few. We do receive every now and then a manuscript collection where the donor sends it to LDS first to be microfilmed. LDS actually doesn't keep the collections, so they then will often forward those collections on to us, with the donor's agreement. But generally, there isn't too much along that lines.
And I think we have a few questions also about confirming or denying information that you find in a compiled genealogy. So could you maybe just talk about how, especially the compiled genealogies, might be a good starting point for your research?
Right.
So how would you kind of go about, confirming that information?
Sure. Yeah, the compiled genealogies are, a good place to start. And no matter, what quality, whether they're an amateur or professional genealogist, you should always check their citations. If they're citing from one source that isn't particularly good, then it doesn't matter how many citations they have. So you do need to check the citations if there are some, hopefully. And whether there are or they're not, then you need to validate that information through primary sources.
Thanks. And maybe just a few more questions before wrapping up. There are some questions about specifics of searching the catalog. If you can search by author, if you can search by location. I will say that we did a webinar a few months ago on kind of getting the most from the online library catalog. That was recorded and posted to our website. So if you have specific questions about searching or using the different functions and features within the online library catalog, I recommend reviewing that. But Tim, do you have any other tips or suggestions on how to search the manuscripts?
Yes. There are other ways of searching the or using the library catalog to search for manuscripts. I mean, because I catalog the manuscripts, I know a lot of their call numbers, so I use that because it's quickest. You can also do author searches if you're looking for a specific genealogist's papers and you know the compiler's name. Generally, what most people use is the keyword search, and the more general terms that you use, like a town name or surname, you will probably get more hits than using a specific person's name as a subject.
Okay, so I think we've answered a number of your questions. Again, if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask, you can contact library@nehgs.org, and someone from our library staff, or maybe even Tim, would be happy to help you through email. If you want to become a member and access these manuscripts, you can contact membership@nehgs.org. And as I mentioned previously, if you are interested in photocopying services or research for hire, definitely contact research@nehgs.org. So thank you again for joining us today. As you leave the event, you'll have the opportunity to fill out a survey and give us your feedback. As we continue to expand our webinars and online offerings, any and all feedback is extremely helpful and appreciated. If you'd like to access more how-to resources or learn about upcoming online educational programs, please visit our online learning center, americanancestors.org/education. I hope to see you at our online programs in the future. Goodbye for now.